I'm hosting today. Phil is running around circles somewhere else. Um, and I thought, first off, Mr. Markovich, any business or news for division region you'd like to share with the group?
Not really. They're still working, trying to get people to go to the convention in Long Beach. I'm going. I hope most of you are going because it's on the West Coast. And just for everybody's thing, it looks like we wouldn't be able to have one on the West Coast for at least another 5 years. The next 3 years have already been assigned, and it looks like the fourth year will be by the time the convention happens. So if you want to go to a national, you're going to have to go back east. Or
Let me ask a silly question. Why can't they get people to come to sunny California? I know you don't know, but what is the project? What are
most,
they?
if you look at the NMRA, I'll try and answer part of it. Is that if that's okay? One of the issues is the majority of members are in the Midwest and the East. The West Coast has the least number of members, so that's one thing. The vendors, most of them are on the East Coast or closer to the East Coast. So for them to come out here is a lot more expensive. And that's one of the reasons, just one of the many reasons, the National Train Show, let me set up. The National Train Show has decided to do in the hotel. There's a lot of reasons. People are exaggerating what the deal is. The NMRA has lost at least $100,000 since a year on the National Train Show, starting with the one in Salt Lake City. They lost a lot on that one. So that means every NMRA member is subsidizing the National Train Show, about $10 a member. One of the things is they want to keep the cost down of the membership, and one of the ways is to maybe get rid of the National Train Show altogether. But this year, by putting it in the hotel, and I haven't been to the hotel, but my wife and I've watched probably 20 YouTube videos about the hotel and conventions there. Looks like it's pretty good. It's probably about the same as where we had O Scale West this year, that room, which, I don't know. For me, the National Train Show, I'm in ON3. How much stuff is in the National Train Show that relates to my scale other than maybe electronics? I've gone to 3 national train shows in the last 6-7 years, and there's been literally no ON3. There's been a lot of ON30, which is interesting because you can re-gauge some of it you can't. As far as the National Train Show, it's of almost zero interest to me. I'm going to go because I'm there. So a lot of people are complaining about it being smaller. Well, there's a few issues with it. First of all, they weren't going to rent all the space. Then the Long Beach Convention Center requires that unions do all the stuff. They unload, they set up, they plug in. So if you have a booth, let's say you're Bachman, just as an example, and they usually have a pretty good booth. Well, they got to pay for the unloading, the drayage, and loading back up when it's over, union rates. They got to pay for electricians even to plug anything in. I can speak to this because I'm involved in conventions, not in model railroading, but in video and medical. It costs a fortune. So you can pay an electrician a minimum of 4 hours to plug your thing in. Let's say even electricians were only 100 an hour, but they're more than that. And then unplug it. The vendors can't afford that. So they moved it in the hotel where they can do everything themselves or pay a minimal fee to have it done. So that's one of the issues. Okay, then the NMRA is really trying to hold the dues to where they are. And there's a lot of proposals to lower it. So that's probably the biggest issue. And then the other one is our declining membership. The membership in the coast, well, the PCR is dropping fairly significantly. And Phil's done a lot of work, and others, Dave Putnam, to recruit people. But here's the deal. The number of people that convert from the $20 rail pass to full membership is like less than 10% nationally. So that means you have to recruit 10 to get one, really. And we recruited maybe 40 or 50 last year. I don't know the exact number. If I wasn't on this call, I could look it up on my computer. But let's say that we get better than 10%, even 20%, and we had 50. I don't think we had 50, but close to it. That's 10 people, but we've lost 10 times that number. And why are we losing? We're in a unique position. I've talked to Gordy and to the Regional Advisory Committee, and they all agree in the expensive areas, such as the Bay Area, to a lesser extent, LA and San Diego, but the Bay Area particularly, people are moving out because they can't afford it. Or my friends, a lot of them are moving to be close to their grandkids. My grandkids are all in California, so I'm not going to leave California, but I may leave the Bay Area. So that's affecting it. And I think the price of the dues is affecting it. You know, I'm a life member, so I cost them money. But if they had invested the $250 I paid for life membership and hadn't gone into it, it'd be paying for itself. But the NMRA, a number of years ago, took the money to buy that building for the NMRA headquarters. And that was in my opinion, don't quote me, a bad mistake. So they've gotten rid of the building and they lease back an area. That's sort of the right thing to do. So anyway, now I want to tell everybody about July 31st in Sacramento. We never had a formal dedication of the Magic of Scale model railroading mainly because of the pandemic. So they're going to have on the 31st a formal presentation. We're going to have a number of the NMRA officers there. I don't know for sure who, but because it's just a few days before the convention in Long Beach. My mind's sort of not on there yet. We're going to Hawaii next week. Not a lot of trains in Hawaii.
I saw it. I did see the guy with the O-scale layout in Hawaii. But anyway.
Is he on Waikiki?
Don't even remember. I think so. Oahu? I don't know.
Well, that's
anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Is it a good layout? No. Okay.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. So anyway, that's what I know what's going on. What's really important, I'm going to really lobby a bit, is when we get new members, especially like at a coast meet, since this is the coast, we need to be more friendly with them and encourage them and, show them all the advantages, because they don't know. I know the first time I went to a coast meet was at Reardon High School in the 70s. And if it wasn't that I knew a couple of people, I never would have joined probably. I've never been one, as most of you know, that cares about the auction. And the clinics, And then the fellowship is what I care about. So anyway, any questions from anybody about what's going on in the NMRA?
I'll just extend a comment you made here about fellowship, which is it's fellowship plus the sharing of knowledge and experience. That new guy is sitting there, or gal, sitting there scratching their anatomy, trying to figure out why their locomotive is misbehaving or their cars are derailing, and to say, hey, let's get together and work on that. Let me look at your layout. I'm telling Jesse, hey Jesse, if you want me to, I'll come over and kick the slats in your railroad and we see why the DCC is peeing on your shoes. But not just for, how shall I put it, the regular suspects here, but as you say, the new people, to reach out to them when they're sitting there by themselves in a corner at the convention. That young man who got an award for something he did in the contest. And so I sat down with him in one of the quiet areas and was talking about Athearn locomotives and doing this and that, and then followed up after the convention with an email exchange, sharing some more information and images. And it's getting our know-how and experience out of our heads into their hands, because that, I think, is one of the biggest things that will say, hey, this is a group of people that it benefits me to associate with. We can say, oh, well, our standards are important for the interchange, but it's how can we solve the practical problems that keep them from having more fun in the hobby? And it's just getting ourselves in there. Yes.
One thing I just drew, June, we have BAPM. Will we have the booth there?
What is BAPM, please?
Bay Area Prototype Modelers.
Oh, the RPM they call it.
Yeah, well, it's BAPM is the group locally.
Right.
So I don't know if Phil's planning anything. I'm going to be gone, so I won't be there. But I've gone to 3 of them, and I've worked a couple. We've never gotten any members.
Haven't you? Oh.
I'm going to take exception just with a while ago, and it seems like a long, long time ago, we used to have auctions, I guess, or group meetings and that sort of stuff that were really had a lot of people at them. What was it? Every 2 months or something like that?
4 times a year.
Well, when we were in Alameda in the basement down there and that sort of stuff, and I felt really good about that, and also at the Boy Scouts type of thing. It was a time to get together and maybe pick up some stuff on the cheap or not. But I felt that the idea now that there's only like 2 auctions that I would go to through the whole year or something like that. I think that maybe as a group we should rethink that decision. As I say, I loved going to Joyce's party, and I met a lot of our Coast Division people there. Well, several of our Coast Division people there. And, the Weird Garden Railroad folk, of course, and that sort of stuff. But it was a activity that, I want to go there and type of thing and get together. And
So let me address the auction. Because
I don't want to spend a lot of time.
One of the problems that's happened with the auction was fading before I became superintendent. So that's 8 years ago. It was fading, and I took over for superintendent. I don't remember who was before me. Maybe
Dave Smith?
No, it's before Doug.
Pat Latorres?
I think it was Mark Schuster. And we talked about how the auction was going down. Well, what's happened with the auction? It continues to drop. Well, why? for one thing, anything of any, what, there was one time in the auction where I was leading it, where I brought in a member who was in hospice at the time, and I brought in about 30 brass locomotives. They went for about a fourth of what they would have gone on eBay. He didn't want to deal with eBay. I won't deal with eBay. I will deal for my own self once in a great while, once or twice a year at the most. So if you have a brass locomotive, let's just put the price at around $200. You'll be lucky to get 50 at a coast auction. So they'll sell it on eBay, or they'll sell it on one like the .io groups, or something like that. So the value of the stuff at the auctions has dropped significantly. And that's how the coast made most of their money. What we maybe need to do is change the model, okay? The last coast meet I went to, the one clinic that was worthwhile was on installing, using wireless, the Blue Nami. That was worthwhile, but it's been a while since there have been any. I know that Dave Gibbons Soldering is a really good clinic. I worked as an electrical engineer. I've soldered so much in my life, I don't even want to look at a soldering station. Anyway, that's me. But the thing is that we need to rethink the events. And one of the things, a couple people, I don't know if either of them are on this. Let me see. No, they're not. One of the things that a few of us has talked about is, the rail fair up in Sacramento. Maybe we need something like that in the Coast Division, where it's more of a swap meet type thing. O-Scale West, I don't remember seeing, Joe was there.
Yeah, I was there.
Pretty quiet, almost nothing show. Sunday, I left early. I sat there for 4 hours. I didn't sell one thing. I gave away a whole lot of things, but I didn't sell anything. And I looked around the room at 1 o'clock, which is when I left. There were maybe 4 people that weren't vendors in the room. And I don't know, they could have been vendors. And I said, oh, this is it. I can't sit here all day. O-Scale West, I think, lost money. I don't know if anybody knows. I'd like to know, but I can't see how they made money.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah. So, but there was a number of reasons it wasn't well attended. I'm not going to get into them, but I think if we had something and you could do it at it, I've talked to Michael Eldridge and Brian Booth and a whole stack of people. We could do it in a larger church room, and probably do it on the inexpensive and open it up to everybody, not just Coast members, but say this is one of the advantages, these type of events, and maybe we could do something like that.
If anybody's thinking about it, one of the things that I found really positive about the auctions was actually clinics. If we were going to have I won't call it a clinic day, but some words that would sound better, and we're going to have 3 really hot clinics followed by an auction as a different kind of model. I don't know, as I say, it just came to my mind. I mean, I thought Dave's clinic on how to make cars stay on the track, which by the way doesn't work. No, it's Dave's clinic about prepping just regular rolling stock. That was real helpful. And as I remember, the room was filled when we had it. But I don't think anybody, outside the dozen people that are sitting on this call knew about that clinic. Maybe, maybe our advertising was not good. But anyway, that's just a thought.
Well, I should talk to Phil about what we could do. There's other ideas, but the bottom line is our membership is declining. It's declining because people are moving away, people are dying, people's health.
That's going around these days, I hear.
Well, it's like, Dave Parks is in hospice now. And, we got Jack Burgess, who's trying to, if anybody knows a place that would take his layout, he wants to take it out so Jackie doesn't have to deal with it, is what I understand. We're an older group, and that's one of the reasons I don't mind the PCR spending money on stuff for the members, because I don't think we're going to totally fade away, but we're getting lower, and it's going to continue to get lower unless we find a way to revitalize it. One of the things that's good in our area is Seth Newman and the operations stuff. Now, I hate operations for me, but that's a lot of the, if the train runs around the track, I'm happy. So we should stress more of that. Yeah, David.
One of the things I keep seeing is that we seem to be getting segmented between the modelers and the operations people. And I know I'm not part of the operations group at all. I'm a modeler, period.
Real quick thing about the auction. I've only been around PCR for a couple years, and I get the notice there's going to be an auction and some very simple instructions on getting ready for the auction. But every time it just comes up on me, and it's too late to get the auction cards in the mail, to get your stuff sorted out. It's a little bit of promotion of actually here's how you do the auction in detail, and warnings that you better get yourself a week or two ahead of the game to have your stuff out and ready for the auction, and to have it registered with the cards. And so anyway, that's my feel. I've only been to one auction, and it was okay. I sold a few things, but I was not inclined to go back after it sneaking up on me. Maybe my fault, but there could be some way of really pushing it to get ready. I got plenty of stuff I could throw into the auction. Just haven't worked my way through all the loops to do it.
Well, another problem the NMRA has is that like they have nothing for garden railroaders, or the Bay Area Garden Railroad Society has 350 families. And they're very active with scratch building going on. They're building buildings. They're building real bridges that have to stay outdoors in the weather. They're building from brass stock, operating steam engines and diesel engines. They are some really extraordinary modelers, and yet hardly any of them are NMRA members. And I don't know how we would reach out to those societies except for NMRA members getting active in the garden railroad hobby.
Well, it's not just garden railroaders. I'm in a scale that very few people are in. There's relatively not much for me in that scale. I have friends that are in N scale. There's not much for N scale. And then S scale, I've got half a dozen friends. They're not in the NMRA. They're in SN3, which makes ON3 look like a big, And
Right.
so the whole thing is the hobby needs to reach out to all. The garden railroader, the operator, the scales, TT. There's a couple guys. Brennan is heavy into TT.
There's also a whole bunch of people, the module builders. You see them; they appear magically once every 6 months at an event, and there's piles of people that have built modules that and all those all of those types of things. And there's another group that I don't think we particularly reach out to, if they were a group.
Yeah.
We made sure that most of the local clubs know about, having their membership NMRA.
So both, I haven't done it in a while, but when I was superintendent and then director, I went and tried to visit every club I could that I knew about. And I was not met with open arms, let's just put it that way. And I know Phil has done the same. And it just,
Well,
If I may,
large.
please, one moment, please, everybody, hang on. Joyce Hennessy, please, you wish to speak?
oh,
As a member of Baggers, the Bay Area Garden Railway Society, one of the things I think that I tried to do before the pandemic was to get an exchange of newsletters. And at that time, I worked with whoever was in Baggers and whoever was in NMRA-PCR to just have each of us have access to each other's newsletters so that people in Baggers could see what is going on with the NMRA and vice versa. And, kind of including a little bit more of the Garden Railway information, I think might be a good thing for the NMRA. I think when you have more, you may say this is bias, and it probably is, but when you have more women, I think you have, maybe a little more socializing and certainly more cooking. I don't know. That's maybe.
I take
Thank you,
personal.
Joyce.
I take personal affront at that.
Well, and it certainly doesn't apply to me because I can't cook anything. I have a quick question. Somebody brought to my party, and you were all invited to my party. I worked really hard. I hope that you all received the emails inviting you, because it was really hard trying to get all the email addresses. But anyway, does anybody know who brought those really delicious little stuffed eggs?
The quail eggs?
Oh, the quail eggs.
Who brought those?
Had to be a garden person.
Yeah, I think so
Could
too.
be.
Or a musician.
I want to speak to the topics that Frank has been covering here. The world has changed around the NMRA. The world has changed around PCR. We, of course, are changing as we age. And it's a question of, can we adapt to this new world? My perspective has always been teaching. I teach within my profession. I teach in another different musical activity that I do, and I teach inside the PCR. As you guys know, I teach my various clinics. And that teaching and that sharing of knowledge, to me, seems to be one of the core things that needs to drive us into the future. It's sharing knowledge back and forth, knowledge from Garden Railway folks about how model railroading in their situation works and what lessons we other folks can learn, lessons at the operations SIG and the layout design SIG and stuff. And instead of, it seems like we go into, to use the current term, we go into silos. And there's that, the cross connection between the silos. If I'm not mistaken, the NMRA is the logical group to connect the different subgroups. And I'm not sure how much effort, and Frank can speak to this, is being spent on trying to make the connections and make that, like with prototype railroads, to make it possible to interchange equipment, ideas, and everything else. Frank, back to you.
well, I'm going to say two things. The NMRA has this NMRA-X, but hardly anybody looks at it. The clinics there, last time I looked, there were 453. This is like last year, 453 clinics on the NMRA website that all members.
Hmm.
We really need to publish that and let people know. Another thing is there was a April Fool's joke that I thought wasn't a joke, where the NMRA was going to join with the TCA. And I said, that's a great idea. And it ended up to be a joke. But the TCA, I don't know if any of you have ever gone to a TCA event. I've gone to a couple. They're wonderful. And the TCA dues are half of what the NMRA. And they have more events.
Mhm.
You know, now I'm not a collector of like Lionel and American Flyer and that stuff.
One
But they're complementary organizations.
Well, I'm going to the TCA National Convention in 2 weeks in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And it's got great tours. They're taking us up to Harrisburg, and we're going through the Amtrak facilities there where they exchange from electric to diesel engines. Tours of the Amish country, tours of Gettysburg. And they have a great big swap meet. Yeah, but it's a much smaller venue than the NMRA thing, in
Yeah.
a smaller hotel in a much more informal setting.
And just how much are TCA dues now? I keep forgetting to look it up.
What was it, about $50 or something?
Yeah. And you get a monthly magazine, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's,
They have a quarterly magazine and a monthly newsletter.
yeah.
Yeah, yet another silo, if you
Yeah.
will, another little separate kingdom and operation. But certainly, it sounds like they have kept the spirit of fun alive to a great extent.
But if you go to a TCA event, you see, they're 3-rail O-scale layouts mostly, but they're beautifully detailed.
Mhm.
They're well running, and there's kids around them with all these smiles. They hand people controllers, and the kids get to run trains and blow the whistle and make smoke. It's really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying then, Mr. Joe, that you get them addicted on trains there, and then when they go to the hard stuff, they come to us.
I would hope so.
So
Um,
another issue that we're having is lack of hobby stores. Today's last day of Hobbies Unlimited. I was there yesterday. While they didn't have a lot of train stuff, they had all the consumables and glues and paints and all of that. And just trains, new guy's going to take it over. They don't even have a location yet. So the only really train store is in Santa Clara. And he's not really a train guy. His dad was. He's just a businessman running a shop. Not that that's bad, but so that's a problem for our hobby too. And it's not just our hobby, there's hardly any music stores, anymore.
Well, the world changes around all of these sorts of things as the internet has invaded life.
Yeah.
And made business, has transformed business, particularly specialist business. The hobby stores, for example, Horizon Hobbies has been buying out brand after brand after brand.
Yeah.
And within our own model railroading hobby, we're seeing consolidation as Walters has eaten up things too. But I think we can still survive and live around that. But it's that we have shared, again, I'll go back to sharing the knowledge and stuff. So no matter who we're getting our choo-choos from, or our glue, which we sniff sometimes on the bad days, if we know and share the knowledge, then we can still move forward. But
another thing is helping other people. So some of you know, my train room flooded a little over a year ago.
oh no.
It was because of something a neighbor did, and he's a good neighbor and he fixed it. But anyway, that caused, I hand laid every bit of track, including track that I can no longer reach. And so my layout was, only half of it was operational for almost a year. And finally I had, the place that was bad, I couldn't reach. I tried crawling up on the layout, got dizzy, said, well, wait a minute, I'm 75 years old. This is a bad idea. So Earl came over. He fixed it in half hour, okay? So he's not a kid, but he's a lot younger than me. He's a lot skinnier and a lot better shape, which probably most of you are too. But anyway, so my layout runs now, okay? At least it goes in a circle, which is about all I care about. Can do more because I went to the Blue NAMI. Thanks, Joe. That was a good clinic, by the way. Anyway, I get calls all the time, people needing help, and then I get on the phone and try and find somebody who can help them, or they are asking for advice. Guy called me last week. He goes, I'm about to build a layout. I got a 20 by something room. What's the best advice you could give me? And I said, be able to reach everything. Don't have nothing more than an arm's length away. However much track you have, cut it at least in half, because the maintenance will kill you over time, okay? That's the best advice I can give anybody. I also said, start small, just do a little bit, learn enough before you just try and do all the track, then all the scenery, etc. So, you know, we need to help each other out. Sometimes it's just advice, sometimes it's having somebody like Earl come over. You know, we probably should have a list of people that can help others in various areas.
I'm up for that.
I suggested this so many times.
Yeah, but it takes somebody to like sit there and do it.
Yeah.
Well, I invited Jesse Walden over to my house, and we banged our head in some of his locomotives and their DCC, and it was fun. And I think Jesse got a little bit further ahead in the hobby. And I'm welcome to have more people.
Absolutely.
Right. I've been over to Ken's, and I think we said some bad words about getting ladders on some cabooses. And, you know, but it's that willingness to do some one-on-one. I went over to Joyce's, and we said bad words and got things ready for the promontory recreation event. And little stuff we can do. It doesn't even have to be fancy. Joe did a clinic up at the Golden State Railway Museum on Blue NAMI and something else. And it wasn't real big and fancy and didn't require sacrificing small animals or renting big halls, but it was a way to learn and share. Plus, we got to, of course, go sit there with our mouths open looking at the Golden State Railway Museum, which is imposing in any day. But that sort of stuff. Go.
No, I just wanted to add on to what you said. One of my memories, I'm a structure person and scenery. I'm like Frank. I like if it runs around and stays on the track. That's a real positive thing. But we were at one of the auctions one day, and I sat down with Earl, and I don't think we sat together for 15 minutes. And he just gave me some thoughts, some tips, and things like that. And besides going forward, I have always felt that very close to Earl, even though, you know, I've never seen anything of his and that sort of stuff. It was that one-on-one kind of conversation. And that's what you were saying before about, you know, maybe we're not doing that to the new members, to those types of things.
The idea of having visits to open houses. Baggers does a lot of that. And you know, if anybody's open to the idea of people coming over to their house, then you choose one Saturday every 6 months or something, and you choose 3 or 4 different people that other people can go visit.
So, and Joyce, this would be not in the sense of an operating session, although some trains may run, but just get together, yammer, tell jokes, share information, Uh, I I think that is excellent in the sense that it is a keep it simple thing. I would be very glad to open up my garage when the weather's decent, set out some chairs and some snacks, make fun of my railroad, and just visit with people.
One
Um,
of the things that I would suggest, because I've gone on layout tours in the South Bay or wherever, and mentally I keep thinking, okay, I've got 7 layouts that I want to see, and they're all over Santa Clara County or wherever the hell that is down there. Okay, so if I go here and then here and then here and then here, and then I got to get back on the freeway. If it was only 3 and there was a much narrower time slot, I could meet with people and, like you say, have a little presentation about your railroad and then ask questions and then say bad words and then find small animals to etc.
Frank, what I'm curious, Jesse, hold on now. Frank, as we throw this spaghetti at the wall, does any of it stick for you?
Well, yeah, but what we need is people to do the work to organize it.
Right.
So this is my last year as PCR president because I'm not allowed to run again. But I'm glad it is because the amount of work as PCR president is, I remember talking to Pat Latouris and Ronnie, that Pat said he hadn't hardly any time to model. And I said, well, how can that be? Well, you know, I don't just have model railroading. I play music. I'm rehearsing Tuesday night before I head out to Hawaii. I play with a church group once a month, approximately, sometimes twice, sometimes I don't. Like this next month, I'm gone most of the month. So I have that. I take some lessons, believe it or not, even though I have a master's in music. I'm taking lessons from a guy who's above me, a guy who's played at Carnegie Hall headline. So he's an A player and I'm probably a B player. And then I have 9 grandchildren. After this call, we're going to Morgan Hill, which is about an hour, a little over an hour away, to watch 2 soccer games. And we watch the kids.
Yeah.
So it's not, my model railroading time is limited, okay? But if I wasn't PCR president, I'd have time to more time to model. As it is now, it's just treading water at the moment in model railroading. So a year from now, I'll be able to go back. But I mean, I like being president. I think I've done some good. I think I could have done more, but anyway. But the problem is getting people to step up to do this stuff. I'm going to talk about when I became superintendent, because I know Phil's going through the same thing. I had 3 or 4 positions to fill. So I just did them. And I had people tell me, well, you shouldn't do that. If you don't do it, it won't happen. And Dave Connery isn't on. He was the main one that was saying, you can't do it all. Well, as PCR president, I can't do it all. And neither, next, it'll probably be Chip. We're both doing more than, we should be. But I'd like to see somebody, we used to have somebody handle the layouts and did layout tours by area. I tried to get here are experts and you can call on them list. That didn't work. You need somebody to step up and take these things on. And if we get that, we can move ahead with some of these ideas. I can't do much on the PCR and the other scales and the outdoor, except talk to people about it. But I think the NMRA should. I know there's resistance, Joyce. You probably don't want to hear this, but there's some members, in the NMRA hierarchy, I won't say who, because I don't want to slam them, who say, well, it's scale model railroading. It's not. And I go, I don't get it. I mean, I can maybe understand with the TCA is a difference. I don't agree with that either. But that's not really scale when you have 3 rails, and that's what they argue. In the Garden Railroad, I had a F-scale Shay till last year. I thought, oh, maybe I'll do a garden. I realized I can't my backyard isn't suited to it. I hate gardening. My dad loved gardening. He didn't instill that love of gardening in me. So I sold it because it was sitting here doing nothing except looking at it. It was a beautiful engine. And some of the stuff in the large scale is just fantastic. And there are guys that do great work with that scale indoors. Bob Poley. I don't know if you guys know Bob.
Yeah.
His layout is awesome.
Yeah.
It's
Frightening almost.
yeah. And I don't even know if he's an NMRA member. He goes to the West Side Reunion every year, which I run. Well, that's another thing that takes up my time, which, by the way, if you gave me the choice, NMRA or West Side Reunion, MRA would lose because it's like the highlight of my year. You know, and the Sierra is the next day, which I really like. Because for rod engines, my favorite engine is number 3 on the Sierra. So, you know, but the point is you need people to volunteer. And maybe Joyce, you could be a conduit between the Coast Division and the Garden Railroad. I went to their convention when they were out here. I've gone to 2 of them, the national, and they were fun.
What? Fun? You're talking about having fun with trains, Frank?
Yeah.
Eric,
Okay, I want,
Can I-
Frank, I'd
can I-
like to,
But
folks, hold on. I'd like to get some of the folks who haven't been speaking up if they'd like a chance. We've been a few of us have been busy here, and I'd like to get just anything for folks that have been sitting back. Larry, for example, or
Yeah.
Fran, Rich. Do you have any 5 cents you want to throw in here?
I've got a lot of 5 cents.
All right.
And Frank mentioned the magic word volunteer. And this is the one thing every year I question whether I should stay with NMRA or not. And the reason for that is, as a project manager, I joined the Project Management Institute. And you had to earn certain credits every year in order to maintain your membership, your certificate. And one of them was volunteering to the not to the organization, but to the profession.
Right.
And you got credit for doing that. It wasn't specific to the organization. It wasn't like you had to do hours for PMI. As long as you did it for the organization, volunteer work, even some of your own work at the office, which you got some credit for, you got those hours. You volunteered, you got credit. My problem with the NMRA is that, are they representing the hobby? Or are they representing themselves when it comes to volunteers? Because their volunteer certificate only allows you credit if you volunteer for NMRA functions. Now, I do a lot of work for the hobby at the Golden State Model Railroad Museum. I'm a treasurer, I'm a director. I run trains, and when I run trains, I bring my controller out and I have little kids run trains. And you wouldn't believe how their eyes light up when they get to do that. But I get no credit from the NMRA for doing this volunteer work for the hobby. And that has always bugged me. Why can't they open it up so that the volunteer certificate, you can get credit for doing work that you can document for the hobby? Why does it have to be just for the NMRA? And again, I question it every year, and the only reason I keep signing up is because of you guys. You guys make me feel welcome. You guys, Dave, you helped me put a clinic on and everything. So I learned a lot of things. And you guys are the only reason why I stay, because that one thing bothers me so much.
It
Well,
bothers
Frank,
me too.
Yeah, it's sort of like the military, Larry, where you stay fighting because of your your fellow soldiers, right?
Mhm.
But I think, okay, so thank you, Larry. Fran, Mr. Bedard, Mr. Adorni, anybody, you guys, anything you want to throw in here? I do want to sort of wrap up this analysis of the problems of the world of model railroading here, but before we move
Dave,
off of that,
Just one,
I just vetted, so does anybody have anything to say about that, or is it just
I do. I agree
okay,
with you.
Frank has the floor.
I really agree with you on that. And, you know, I pushed it once before. The next RAC meeting, which is my one input into the, you know, the hierarchy, I'll push it again because I agree. It shouldn't just be NMRA. I understand why the NMRA, the insurance is only NMRA sponsored. I get that. I've talked to them till I'm blue in the face on that. But this volunteer thing, really, it shouldn't matter. Like, I think, David, didn't you do one at O Scale West?
Yep.
That should count too.
Yep.
I've done clinics at O Scale West 3 or 4 times. And, you know, I'm an MMR because I've done so much. I'm lucky. But everything should count.
Yep.
Mhm.
If it models, you know, steel wheels running on steel rails, whether it's 3 rails, 2 rails, big rails, small rails, old rails, new rails, European rails, Bulgarian rails, whatever. But I think we have a general consensus on that. But Charlie, did you have anything you
Well,
want to
yeah.
throw in?
So thanks for calling me Charlie and not Mr. Bedard, because I wasn't
Sorry.
sure who you meant. It's interesting because as I look at this screen here with all you people, wave your hands if you're under 60, right? I don't see any young people here, and the reason, and I don't know most of you guys, mostly because I'm an operator. And so, Frank, don't give me the crossed fingers.
No,
Because...
no. I was an electrical engineer. All I did was solve problems all day. I look at operations as problem solving.
So this is the point I wanted to make, right? As the NMRA, we shouldn't expect people to come to us and say, we want to join you, right? As far as I'm concerned, the NMRA is a community that's here to serve the hobby, right? And so who's in the hobby? Why are none of the young people here on the screen? Because they're doing other things. It's not that they're not in the hobby, it's that they're doing other things. And how I got hooked on the hobby when I was, I think 23, which was a few years ago, I got hooked on operating. And why did I enjoy? I mean, I like building things. I like working with my hands. I like doing electronics and stuff. I'm also an engineer, Frank, but I like building things. But what I enjoyed was the camaraderie, the fellowship. I think, David, you said earlier, right? And that's the trick with operating. The trains are almost, not quite, but almost a sideshow for operating. Because what I enjoy is I go to the operating sessions and there's 10 people, 12 people, 6 people, whatever it is, and we talk and we have fun. I like solving the puzzles, but and frankly, I like the research that goes into it. You know, when I go to Rick Fortin's place to operate, that's Santa Fe in the 70s, right? When I go to Dave Lovelace's to operate, that's Southern Pacific in the 40s and so on. And so I learn about each of these different railroads and how they operated, but mostly it's a bunch of people that I hang out with. We have a good time. And guess what? There's some guys in their 20s there. And so they're enjoying the simulation, they're enjoying things. The other thing that I find annoying, and I'm not saying this is criticism of what you said, Frank, but I hear people complain about the NMRA costs. Like, what the hell are people concerned about? First of all, since everybody here is probably on Social Security or Medicare over 65, the NMRA has this program where this group will pay for your NMRA fees. So stop whining that you have to pay $90 or whatever. And by the way, you go and get a Scale Trains ready to run boxcar, that's $60. So I don't know why people are complaining about the cost of the membership. It's because they don't join because they don't connect it, I think incorrectly, but they don't connect it with the fact that this is a community of people who enjoy the hobby, they enjoy making things, they enjoy getting together, sharing information, right? And so that's what I think the trick is. The trick is people aren't going to come to us right? We have to go and interact with the young people. I've got a good young man. He's just turning 16. He's a train nut. I'm taking him to operating sessions, right? He loves it because it's a game. But what does he do at those different venues? He's meeting some of us gray-haired guys, and we're able to provide that information. And once the connection is made, then the connection sticks. So anyway, that's my thought.
Thank
We
you.
had
Thank you,
at
Charlie.
West Side Reunion, we had a young gentleman, probably 25. I'm not good at judging ages. He brought 4 models. He won first place in 2 categories. And he was the most popular person at it. Everybody talked to him.
Exactly.
It's really important, the talking to him, encouraging him. His stuff was really good. And people were giving him advice, if you did this, and it was really good. And we need more of that in the NMRA.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. I'm not sure what our takeaways are from this, but I think that we have, knocked out some, kicked around some good ideas. I know for myself that I want to get people to my house to operate, but it's funny because there's not a real obvious way to do it. I've been in communication with Paul Weiss and Seth Newman, and it's like they don't have an obvious way for somebody that wants to open their layout for operators. I'm going to see what I can do to put my, there's apparently some listing. But
There's
again,
a website.
it's
There's a website for operators. We have to get that spooled up. But apparently, if you want to operate, you can subscribe, and if you want to offer your layout, you can publish it. And it's to connect potential operators with people putting their.
Yeah, Charlie, could we talk about this more offline?
Absolutely.
Also, David, if you want to open your layout, I can put it in the. I give the stuff to Denny. She publishes the thing next month. We can do that. And that goes for anybody. Anything you think's train related, let me know, and we'll get it in the monthly constant contact. I've only got about 5 minutes because I got to head out for soccer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
By the way, Frank, I was a volunteer for soccer for over 20 years. So I understand, the issue with getting volunteers and having to do everything when the volunteers don't show up. And I'm here in Morgan Hill, so the soccer fields are just over there. So
Well, that's where I'm going to be in an hour.
exactly. So enjoy your soccer.
Just one thing real quick is that at the Golden State Mall Railroad Museum, I'm with HO scale. And one of the things I brought up at our last general meeting for HO was, we've got this beautiful layout, but we never operate it like a real railroad. We have no operation. So right now I'm trying to figure out who's interested at the club in doing that, doing operations. But I have no background in operations, so I may reach out to somebody here to maybe even come out and talk to us one day about operations, what it's all about.
Charlie's got his hand up.
I got my hand up.
Okay.
Dave Lovelace has been bugging me to try to write a clinic or an article about how to get started in operations. It turns out that operating is fun, and almost any railroad, except Frank's maybe, almost any railroad can be set up for operations, and it's very easy to start.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it complicated.
Yeah, we've got one that, we've got a great layout with all sorts of industries and mainline and all that, but we just, hey, is your train coming up this route? Yep. Okay, well, you better go down the other route. I mean, that's our operation.
Well, that's okay. Mother May I dispatching is perfectly fine.
Now,
I'd like something a little more realistic sometimes.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so we are an hour into this. I was going to share a little actual model railroading stuff, but Ken shake pop in his hand. But Frank, this is a rich discussion, and it's interesting trying to find consensus here amongst all the different perspectives. But I don't know, what you can flow up from what you hear, what you've heard today, but we'd appreciate it.
Definitely, I'm going to push what Larry said. These credit for doing railroad stuff outside the NMRA. That I can do, and that meeting will happen in September. There may be an opportunity to talk to Fred, who's head of Fred Koch at the convention and push that. I volunteered to rewrite 2 of the Achievement Award the rules. Like electrical, as an electrical engineer, the electrical one is so outdated, it's ridiculous. And I also think the civil with scratch building 4 types of turnout, if you're an N scale, you're not going to do that. And even some of the other scales, I did it. I see no use in that. So I'm going to push on that too. I can do that. But again, I'm going to stress, I got to leave in a minute. I'm going to stress that it's really important to get volunteers to head some of this up. Particularly, doing layout tours and then volunteers to help others in the hobby.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll probably try to write a letter to Mr. Gordy, see what, because he brings it up a lot in the NMRA magazine. So maybe I'll just shoot him a letter too.
Yeah, and tell him that we had a meeting in the Coast Division, and this was a hot item amongst the
Yes.
20 of us or so. Say 20 because there's only 13, but
Okay.
stretch it a little bit.
Okay, gotta run, guys. Thanks.
I do too.
All right. Joyce, you have something?
Just have to say I have to go, but I wanted to especially thank you, David, for coming over several times and helping us get ready for the layout tour that we did, and really appreciated it. You did a great job. So thank you, and sorry I have.
It was my pleasure. Take care, Joyce. We will see you again. I want to do some more help with you guys on getting the electrical upgraded over there. If you don't mind, gentlemen, I want to share something I'm working on the layout in beautiful Pleasanton, the Alameda County Central Railroad. We have the HO and the O scale layout, and the O scale layout is 40. This current, they've been there since 1957, I think, at the fairground. They've gone through 3 different buildings. The current one they've been in for 45 years about. And we're having some fun because the turnouts and the track are, for some odd reason, are getting worn. Who could imagine?
Oh, that's a prototype problem.
Yeah, it is. Well, I primarily have been an HO railroader for many, many years, and I didn't appreciate the effect of heavy O-scale equipment pounding on the rails, and just the derailments and stuff. And then you start to look close and realize that if you guys look at this picture I've drawn here on a erasable pad, see where my hand is moving here, folks?
Mm-hmm.
And what's been interesting is that let's see here. If I point where the pen is pointing, can you see the area of the frog? And you have the point inside the frog assembly, and it's just gone. Yes, Ken, you're saying?
The problem is that I'm only seeing it as a sidebar. You need to make that the
focus. Let's see. Let's see. Spotlight. Does that do it?
Yep, that did it.
Okay.
There. I'm an expert here at this stuff. I'm pointing here at what is missing on quite a few of the turnouts, which is the actual point. It's just gone. It's worn away. And I thought I'd tell you guys the sort of things I'm working on here. Problems with the joints, the gaps around the frogs, because with the pounding and everything they take, the frogs are all spiked down by hand, and they started to move. And so we would get short circuits and stuff because the frog had moved, and some of the gaps have been filled, some not. But this thing here, do you see the patch of red? What I've been doing is I've been working on this the last few weeks. I stuff the flangeway here, here, and here with some cardboard. And then I found a company called, a friend introduced me to a company called Muggy Weld. I have no idea why the name is that name, but they offer a special high strength, low temperature alloy. They're super alloy 1. And I've been putting my regular rosin or no corrode flux the heck out of this after wire brushing it like mad, and then literally filling this whole area with this alloy. And it solders with my regular soldering iron. And then I spend many happy minutes carving new flangeways through this. And then I don't know if you guys have ever seen a grout removal tool. You have a handle going down, and then there's a blade which has carbide on both sides so that you can get in the grout and grind away the grout if you're going to re-grout a bathroom or whatever tile job you're working on. It turns out if you then take your Dremel with a cutaway blade, you can grind off one side of the carbide, and the resulting blade width for O scale fits within the acceptable width of the flangeway, the flangeway width for the NMRA standard here and over here where the guardrail flangeway is. And I'm being successful at it. It takes quite a while of work, and I'm having to be up on the layout because of course, that layout was designed where one of the speakers today said, make sure you build your railroad so you can get at everything. Well, that ain't true in Pleasanton on the O-scale layout. So I'm up there with carefully crawling around, trying not to kneel on track and moving scenery out of my way. But it has been successful. You can rebuild these turnouts where they're worn, but it's been an interesting exercise and testing my soldering skills, resoldering the badly done joints where the points have been soldered to the throw bar. There's some real ugly work I'm having to clean up there, but it can be done. And it's been an interesting process of trying to, I guess, what's the word, renovate these heavily worn turnouts to return them to reliable operation. So that's been what I've been working on, and we're busily getting ready, of course, for the Alameda County Fair. The layout, both the HO and the O-scale layouts will be open all the way through the run of the fair from 10 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And that's part of the reason that the track is worn, is because we run the heck out of both of those layouts all through the fair. Anyway, any questions, comments, or knock-knock jokes about what I showed here?
Dave, I would have, from a railroad perspective, and I think Larry would probably back me up on this, I would have thought come up with a prefab.
Ian's here, right?
Hmm?
But you know what? I gotta get going pretty soon because I gotta go over to take. I gotta go work at 4 o'clock, so I gotta take the cow train. And Bart is shut down because of the problem of track work between South City to 60th Mission. Bart is shut down bus bridge. I don't like that. It's not good, right?
Right, Jonathan. Well, thank you for sitting in with us today.
To work, I'm gonna have to do that instead alternative way. I do it now,
Okay,
we can Monday,
Jonathan.
or we can after work.
All right, get to work, you bum.
Keep going. Guess what?
Talking to this gentleman, I can't hear. Keep going.
Yes.
Okay. There was somebody else. Ken, you were saying something?
Shut down next week. I heard about that.
As a result of what you're doing,
Bart is shut down because of track work. I heard about that, right? That's other stuff, right?
yeah.
There you go.
All right, continue there.
But as a result of this, you should work with that organization, the club,
Uh-huh.
up with a plan to replace those frog points on a routine basis so they can emulate prototype operation of a maintenance of way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's needs to have tie replacement, throw bar replacement, rail replacement. The main body of the rail is okay, but it's these high stress points like the frogs that are suffering the most.
In a
And
frog railroad, the stress point isn't a turnout frog.
yeah,
They're out there constantly maintaining, changing them out every couple years.
yep.
If they're on a main line.
Although what I've noticed here, Ken, is that in HO, I never saw this, even on layouts where a lot of running is happening, although Mr. Osorio might speak to the the HO layout in
I don't think
Golden State Railroad Museum.
is strong enough in an HO.
Right. Well, I'll tell you the pounding that the O-scale equipment, those big, massive O-scale locomotives have real meaningful axle loading. And the metal wheels with that axle loading just has really beat up these things. I'm hoping this alloy I'm using, which is pretty high strength, will last for maybe 2 to 3 years, as you're mentioning, and then go through them again. But so that's what I'm working on, and boy, is it hot in that building right now. There's no air conditioning.
Dave, how many of those frogs do you have to restore like this?
Well, we're focusing on one key area in the front of the layout where we have been having a fair amount of trouble, but around the layout, there's 70 turnouts, all hand laid, by the way. So the angles and I think they were built in place. So I can't just drop in precast commercial products in there at code 148.
Yeah,
But
I was just thinking that if you've got so many to do, I like your idea of kind of like just filling the hole and then carving out the what you don't need, leaving the frog. But
yeah,
I was just in my mind thinking maybe there's a jig that you could make that drops over the frog so that you could guide a Dremel tool through there so that you could carve it out quickly if you've got 70 of them to do. Maybe it's
yeah,
something that could be 3D printed if you drew one up, like a jig or a guide that would
yeah.
help. Because doing it by hand is going to take, what does it take, an hour a turnout?
It pushes that.
Yeah,
The
so
problem
it's
is more of something that was mentioned earlier in this meeting about that making sure you can get at things, because this layout is an
yes.
old school layout, and getting at things was not a thought in their head
Right.
at the time. And scenery and everything came in afterwards, I think. So I've had to grab and rip stuff out, scenery gently out of the way so I could get at this stuff. And I'm got my needling pads and stuff. Yeah. But for now, I just ordered a whole set of new carbide cutters to make this easier to come in and remove material. But I think when I get this one section done, that will lead me to think about how to move through the rest of the main line and make sure that the stuff's up to snuff. But anyway, that's been my joy-filled railroading thing. And Mr. Foley, I had a question for you. That picture you had up earlier before you brought your camera up, what's the prototype for that gas-powered model?
That type of gas, methane. That's the prototype for that is South Pacific Coast Railroad Centerville branch. Ran from downtown Newark to Centerville, hauling fruit. There was also the same thing running at it's down near where Great America is now. Started with an A, but there was a horse-drawn branch there too. I don't know if I still have that that picture. I'll see if I can bring it up.
The picture you have is just perfect, though. I would love with a straight face to model that and enter it into a model one of the contests with the prototype locomotive modeled in detail.
1 horsepower.
1 horsepower.
Yeah, 1 horsepower, but it's a 2,200 pound Belgium draft horse.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
took at Ardenwood. It's actually me up on the brake wheel.
Oh,
Just something that came up just recently. In England, there's a company called Model U 3D that scans and actually then creates a 3D print model from the scan of real life. And the thing that they're doing right now is horses,
ah,
and they will print them in any scale.
nice. That's
Yeah, there's a couple guys in the U.S. doing that. I think Mini Prints does it.
Mini Prints does that. Yeah.
Prints is up in Canada, actually. They're not in the US. The thing about the Model U 3D is they're really good at it. And some of their stuff, particularly when you print it in O scale, and they will do either 1:43 or 1:48. The detail is just it's life. It's not like Michelangelo sculpted it.
It's a whole long process to get the detail. It's not a quick, easy thing. But
Yeah,
you're right.
They scan people. They've got like whole a scanner. They have portable scanner. They'll take to rail exhibitions and things like that. You stand in there for 15 seconds, and they've scanned you, and they will turn that into a plastic or a 3D print, resin 3D print.
That's tempting because Susie, my wife, loves Christmas, and so I put an O scale train around the tree, and it would be fun to scan us and put us on the station platform. That would be fun.
Go down to the
And they'll do that for you.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
if you go to the train show in Long Beach in the summer, I'm sure what's his name from Mini Prints will be there, and he's got his little 3D scanner, and you can get scanned, and you can be around.
Yeah. Well,
You've got that technology.
Say again?
They finally got Mini Prints. Finally got a scanner.
Oh yeah. Bernard, I think, is the guy's name. He goes to the train shows, and he was at Springfield, and he goes to all these places, and you go to his booth and sit or stand, and he does the 360 scan and sends you I think 5 different versions in 5 different scales if you want.
Yeah.
oh, neat. All right.
So something really quick. It is the tail end of the volunteer and NMRA thing, and my 2 cents was mainly one word, and that is collaboration. To collaborate. Some guys in Southern California, Kevin Spady, convinced me to pursue collaboration with people. I mean, I can build models, build kits. I can do some CAD and get things moving. I'm not crazy about weathering and painting and airbrushing. My lungs don't do well with airbrushing, even with respirator. So I worked with Kevin. I come up with models that you guys have seen, Plymouth switchers, and I send Kevin 2 models. He builds one for himself, builds one for me, and paints and weathers mine. And same thing with Earl. We did some collaboration, and you have to kind of start it. You have to kind of push yourself to it, find out what someone else can do or what they need that you can do. And it's a big part of the fellowship also.
Yes.
I'm always open to it if it fits my schedule.
The latest in the technology that they've started is printing in color. So that for instance, they'll do the basic colors, the flesh tones, and clothing tones for you.
Nice. Yeah, that's getting really advanced that they can do that now. Okay, Charlie, if I may, could I call you after this meeting closes?
Sure.
All right. Good.
Do you want to call or do you want to Zoom?
We can stay on this, but I'm just wondering now, has anybody else got something else they want to share before we terminate the main meeting?
I do
Ken?
one thing. Can I?
All right.
Thanks to you're getting me Dave getting me a
Whoops.
Yeah. If you can hear us, Ken, we just see a letter K in the middle of your display. I assume what you're trying to do is to turn off your background so you can show us something.
we've lost the video.
Ah,
There you go.
Here I go.
okay, you're back there.
So what it is, unfortunately, I have to turn off the okay, I'll save it for next month.
All right. Yeah, it's happy to show you, but that's about it.
Well, here, I can bring it up here.
There you go.
Show you
Turn
here.
off, turn off your background because otherwise it's hard to.
What I'm trying to show and why I really needed to do this close up, and this doesn't work with a background.
You have to kill your background, Ken.
Yeah, it's aggressively wiping out the train.
Yeah, it's there's no way I think here.
In Zoom, just go to the video and then go to set your background and turn it off.
Hold on.
Okay. The video up arrow.
No, it's there's no way to stop the background from just the way that with just using it within the session. I'd have to go all the way out to my implementation
Well,
of Zoom.
Okay, well, for as you said, next session we can work on it.
Well, but what I was going to show is, Dave, is
Yes.
you got me into soldering, and now I'm doing nano plugs.
Yep.
For DCC and decoder type installations.
And it's working for you.
It is working beautifully thus far.
Good, good. Yeah, I'll continue to offer that clinic. We had a good time at O Scale West with the soldering clinic. We had some amusing technical projection problems with incompatible adapters, but guys stuck with that through the chalk talk part and then learned a lot on the soldering. I really enjoy seeing people go, oh, I can do this. So that's very satisfying.
I'll follow up with photos on the website.
There you go. There you go.
It's much easier to do than right now to handle it in the set.
Okay.
Thanks to you.
You're very welcome. That's collaboration as it was spoken of at the meeting. All right. Jim, glad you were able to join us today, and Rich and Michael. Charlie, we can talk here, or what do you want to do?
Well, we can talk here, or I just have my own Zoom room that I use for most conversations, or FaceTime. The telephone audio quality sucks, so I hate using the telephone. I'm an old telephone guy like Seth Newman, right? But
yeah,
I hate the telephone quality, so I use Zoom or whatever.
Right. Well, because this is a recorded meeting, I actually should finish this. Okay.
Perfect.
And then why don't you did I give you I put up my email address. Did you get it, Charlie?
In the chat? Let me just double check.
rrgibbons@sonic.net. Fran, that is the greatest picture, just so you know, if he's still there. No, he's headed out. What a shot. I have to get over to Cardinwood.
Here we go. All right, got it.
All right.
Well, I'll just send you. I can just send you my Zoom link.
All right.
Zoom meeting via that email, and then you can just click on it.
Good.
And we'll just.
All right, we'll do that. All right. So everybody, thank you very much. This was a long and I think interesting discussion about things we think might make the hobby advance really, or at least survive in today's environment. So that's good stuff. And we will meet again in the coming weeks. And if you need laughs, of course, come to the Alameda County Fair and you can see the two layouts that'll be open to the public all through Run a Fair.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to wrap this meeting up here, and I'll catch you guys down the line. Be well, everybody.
Take care.
All right, take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dave.